So in the series, the YouTube series, Her Stories, 100 Women's Voices, I'm Dr. Mary Lou Marcillo, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Maria Andrade, who will be speaking to us about her life story. She's currently been appointed as the commissioner for the Hispanic commissioner for the city of Newark, as well as she works for NJIT GERA program, where she's a senior mentor, recruiter, and community development engagement, right? Or what was it?
Community development engagement, yes.
Community development engagement coordinator. So we're going to have an opportunity to speak to her about all things, right? Her desire to be engaged in the community politically, as well as her desire to help the community in general. And I think it's a great story. So thank you for joining me today. Just as a explanation as to why I decided to do this series. So I made the decision to do this series for two reasons. A couple of weeks ago, there was an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal chiding our future First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, not to use her title of doctor, because at the end of the day, she wasn't a real quote unquote doctor, because she's not a medical doctor. And secondly, because the role she's going to play, the most important role she's going to play is that of First Lady and wife to the President, Joe Biden, which I thought, wow, okay, so much for her own accomplishments. And it really reminded me that we still live in a society in which patriarchy is still very strong. And I felt one of the ways to combat that is to create a series like this, where we bring together women of all walks of life, of all ages, to talk about their story, so that rather than diminishing ourselves, we're elevating ourselves. The second reason that I made the decision to do this series was my mother passed away 10 years ago, but it's only in the last 2-3 years that I've really begun to explore who she was as a woman, as a person, because I only always thought of her as my mom. But I realize now that my mom was a much more complex person than I gave her credit for. And I realized that I should have actually gotten to know her, what she was like in her 20s and her 30s and 40s, because then I would have understood why she made certain decisions as a parent. And obviously those things shaped who I became. So those are the two reasons I made the decision to do this series. So let me get started, Maria. So tell me, where did you grow up and what was that like?
So I was born in Ecuador, and I came here to Newark when I was 7 years old. Um, coming from a different country, you don't know the language, you don't know really anything. It was really challenging for me to find my place, right? So I started, I'm going to school, and you always somehow have I the struggle. I want to call it the struggle of finding your identity, right? Because you're not from there anymore and you're from here. So your family wants you to keep your roots, but then you go into school and your friends, and it kind of says you need to be from here. And it's always that challenge.
Mhm.
They just
I say we're always straddling two worlds, because like you, I was brought here as a little girl. So I felt like I always had to straddle two cultures.
So then I opted, I focused on, I learned English. I was in the ESL program because that was the program that you needed to go through. And I found a teacher that took some time to talk to me and tell me that, she understands my struggles. Um, when I came in here, my parents, I was living with both of them. Within months, they got separated, and then I went to live with my grandmother, right? So I didn't have the mom figure growing up where, a lot of girls have. I was, growing up and then figuring things out of myself. And, grandma has this vision. Grandma has, the way that she raised us a particular way, and I never understood it. And something I do like to do is read. I always read. I love reading stories about empires and history and how things used to work back then. And I always questioned. That's something that just comes from inside of me. I'm questioning everything. Like, why do they get to do that, and so forth. So the dream was, when they will ask me what do I want to do, is I want to be a judge. That's really the dream. That's my life goal, to get into law school, right? But I deviated from that, right? But the dream never dies. I thinking about, where I work at now. I started going to the program that taught me about going to college, the importance of going to college, right? So you will think, okay, bingo, Maria is in a program that is going to, show her and so forth. But what happened? I didn't make the choices that kind of followed with my goals, right? I became a teen mom at the age of 17. And so that threw out the scholarships that I had, that threw out, the opportunities that I had to go and attend different universities out of state, because I've always worked into going to a different university. And when I found out that I was pregnant, I had to make a choice. And I said, okay, I'm going to be a mom. This is my role now. Again, a lot of, especially I believe if you're Latina, a lot of your choices come your from your home, from the culture of your home, right? In our culture, it's very demeaning to the female. It's role identifying. Is this is your role. You don't question your role. You do as you're told. You keep things quiet. You keep the house clean. You make sure the family is fed. You make sure everything is. This is no longer about you. It's about your husband. It's about your family and so forth. So talk about identity growing up in America, but being home with the ideals. Uh, so
I had the same challenges in that sense of, being growing up in the United States, trying to be an American girl, but at the same time, my parents were Ecuadorian. I was born in Ecuador. My parents have very strict ideas of the role of women and the role that I was supposed to serve as a female.
exactly. So it was like, okay, Maria, you have dreams. My father was like, okay, support you. You go to college. I'm going to be here for you. The second I became pregnant, it was like, okay, you no longer have a life. You have a responsibility. You chose to be a woman. You chose to be this, you this and this and the fifth. Now your focus is on that. And I still fought it. I was not happy. I said, this can't be life. This cannot be life where yes, I made a mistake. Yes, I'm a parent. But it can't be this. It can't be that my dreams are gone and I'm never going to do what I like to do. I fought hard. I went to my school counselor. She told me, she was like, okay, Maria, we can't do college outside, but we can do college here. We can do Essex County to start with. And she told me, she said, there's these programs that help you. And that was the EOF program. She said, okay, so zero new mom, take one class at a time. And I was like, okay. I didn't listen. I was like, no, I could be the mom, I could be the wife, I could work, and I can go to school. 18, 19 years old,
Superwoman.
dealing with all those identities, being the wife, and, going through all that trauma, being a new mom, and, all everything that comes with it. And then being a student, but also, working, because if you don't work, then how are you going to feed the kids? How are you going to feed yourself? So
And here's the thing, it's not like you were 35, you were 17.
17, 18,
Right.
18, 18. At that time it was I was 18. So I moved out with the father of the kids, and I was like, I started failing classes the first semester, because it's funny. I graduated on June. My son was born that May. So my son came with me to my graduation. He was a month old. And then in July, that's when the 6 week program started with the EOF. And so I went, and I failed two of the five classes because, come on, like all of this that's going on. And I didn't stop to think like, okay, I need to take a chill pill. I was told to take it slow, but I didn't. And when I saw those grades, that impacted my GPA right away. And then I was like, okay, so I'll take, I guess, those remedial classes that I had to take and get just a fair grade in order for me to take the full course. I couldn't do that. So I was stuck taking the remedial classes. And it was like, wait a minute, I went up to trigonometry in math. And how do I go to pre-algebra? It makes no sense. But it was because of everything that was going on around me that I couldn't, you couldn't possibly focus solely without the proper support system. So I went into my fall semester, and I became pregnant again with my princess, my daughter. And that was it. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I got into the mentality of, you know what? This is it. That's it. I'm done fighting with the culture. I'm done fighting with who I am supposed to be because that's what I was told I was going to be. So it's like I fought myself through it, and then I gave up on me, on my dreams. And I said, okay, you know what? Goodbye school. So I left school to focus on being the mom, being the wife, and working. And then, I mean, think about a young marriage starting at that age. You're not ready for the responsibility. It's a hard and strong responsibility. Um, so two teenagers starting off, it's not going to end very well, especially when you don't have the support system in place where you're supporting a young person, right? So of course, I was very unhappy. And the culture way of in our country in Ecuador is the man he says what he says, he does what he does. You don't question, you be quiet, you hold. And there were some things that they were not okay with me, and I decided that that wasn't it, that I couldn't be just my labels were wife and a mom. Are
And
those
a
going to be
worker,
my labels?
right? And a worker, right?
And a worker, like those were my, is that going to be my life labels?
Right. And how old were you when you decided to separate?
24.
Okay.
And I had gone to, there was a very big issue where I had to seek some help with a counselor. And she spoke to me, and she told me, she goes, it's okay to get out. It's okay to get out of this relationship. It's okay to start. It's okay to start over again. And that was the counselor that I used to work with in NJIT. She's no longer there, but she knew me since I was young. So we were able to have that relationship where she saw me, going through all of this. And she said, okay, this is time for you. And here's a pathway. So she said, first step is you leave the situation. And that's the hardest, right? How do you break your family per se? How do you take responsibility from walking out when your whole culture is really embedded into, you don't do that? And if
Right.
you do that, you are the shame. If
Right.
you do that, you are not worthy. If you do that, you're not woman enough. So dealing with that, it's like fighting back to identity, fighting who you are supposed to be versus who you want to be. It's always happening.
Well,
So
it's interesting that you say that, Maria, because it is a cultural thing. I think, I mean, I can't speak to about other countries, but like you, I'm Ecuadorian, and there is this, great stigma against divorce, against leaving your husband, this whole idea of obeying, this whole idea of silence, you have to put up and shut up.
yes,
Mhm.
So I was lucky enough, and I mean, I'm forever grateful because I have people have been people have been coming part into my life that have possibly positively impacted,
Mhm.
right? People that have extended the hand to say, come on, this is how you do this without judgment. It's let me help you build you. And we're not used to that. Sometimes we're not used to being helped because we think that you just want to help me because you want something out of it. Sometimes that may be true, but
Right.
sometimes there are actually a lot of people that want to do that. And I understood that when I was working with kids in NJIT as a mentor, as a teacher assistant, you know, I saw that I really cared for those kids.
So
And I started
yeah. So let me ask you this, because you got divorced, you got separated, and then when did you decide to go back to school? How did that happen?
right away, right away. So I I got separated on August. On September, I went back to Essex County. I went back to the lady that gave me the opportunity to become in the EOF. I explained to her, you know what happened. She said, "Come on in, Maria. Come on in." This time I listened. This time I took one class per semester and I started from scratch because I had lost all those credits. So I had to start from scratch. And even though taking that one class right after the breakup, that was like a lot. So, and then it took me what? It took me almost 4 years to get a 2-year degree.
Wow. And let me ask you this, Maria, did you move back with your family, or did you decide?
Yeah, I had to make the decision of, I was in my own apartment and so forth. I put everything in storage and I moved in with my mom and my kids. So, that itself is a brand new change and so forth. Then I had to, have 3 jobs in order to make ends meet because I was alone. I was really alone. I didn't have the education that required to get those high paid jobs.
Right.
So I had to, make it work.
Hmm.
And two, 3 jobs, I'm not ashamed. And I had to do that to make sure my kids were good. It's funny how you always, when you recall certain things, it just brings emotions out of you, right?
Right. But this is the thing, it shows your strength. And you were a young woman, very, very young, to have to deal with all of that on your own is really just incredible. And the fact that you finished, it doesn't matter if it took you 4 years to finish an associate's degree, but look at where you are today. I mean,
Exactly.
and look at where your children are today, right? Because
Exactly.
it wasn't like, okay, so you took care of yourself and forgot your kids. It's you took care of yourself in order to take better care of your children, and your children are thriving.
Absolutely. So again, you take these experiences and you start to think and say, how do I if I don't care for me, who's gonna care for me?
Very good.
Who's gonna care for me? At the end of the day, my kids will look to the right and to the left. This is my leadership. What is my leadership doing for me?
Hmm.
And when you're that leadership, it's a big pressure point, very
Hmm.
big pressure because
Oh, of course. There's a
you
lot riding on you. Hmm.
yes.
There is a lot on your shoulders. And so now, did you go to NJIT to get your bachelor's?
No, after once I graduated from Essex County, I went into NJCU.
Oh, okay, NJCU.
And politics were never on my radar whatsoever. It was always like, I'm going to go to school for criminal justice because that's what I do. That's my undergrad, criminal justice. But I work at NJ with Gear Up
Hmm.
all these years, and it was education, right? So I'm like, how weird is it that I'm working in education, but I would go to school for criminal justice because the dream never dies. And I went to NJCU and I got offered 2 scholarships to go to Washington, D.C. for some leadership. I guess I had a conversation with a professor, and he said, maybe you should go to DC and learn. I'm like, I'm a mom. There's no way I can have a fellowship. A, I can't afford it. B, you need to have the time, and I work. Then the little time that I have is I come here to school, and then the other time is my kids. A fellowship, it's like having a whole nother job without getting paid for, but you get the experience. And sometimes some of us that go back to school can't necessarily afford that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest barriers. So I went into, I got the fellowship for the Washington Center, and it was for 2 weeks. And I got my course credits, and I learned all about politics in Washington, D.C., how they run and so forth. Started building a network. And then I got another scholarship for the Center for American Women in Politics, the leadership, the new leadership, a program designed to help minority women understand how politics work. And when they gave a strong statement, if you're not on the table, you're on the menu. That stuck to me. And I said, well, a lot of these things, a lot of the things that are going around us are actually impacted by legislation, are actually impacted by someone who made a choice to either stop, continue, or start something, a new law. Everything that you think of around you, even how much money you get for FAFSA, how much money you get for this, the everything that's to do with school, even your taxes, all of that stuff is impacted because of legislation. So I got to understand a little bit of the process, and it just went from networking and getting to know people, and then starting to work on projects where I was able to develop myself professionally, develop mentally, and also help my community out. Because if I made a good connection with someone that's offering internships, now my students in high school can also take advantage of that. So it's bridging all of us together, and
Mm-hmm.
having that will of, I'm going to help you, and being part of their success. That's what really does it for me. Being able to say, you need help, let's sit down and let's do the application, let's set some smart goals, let's do these assessments that are just going to get you to know you better for your future.
So let me ask you this, Maria, because obviously you're still very young. I look at you and you look like a baby, right? And I think the future is really, really bright. So where do you see yourself going in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years. So right now, I had a plan, I had a 10-year plan. Once I left the marriage, I I said, I'm going to go back to school, because those little steps in schools get you to have a little bit of more financial liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got my bachelor's last year, no, 2019. And that just helped me out be more financially stable.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm waiting on into, I'm looking into master programs, because I'm a mom. The dream is still to go to law school, but I'm also a mom, a single mom of two teenagers. So I know they're going to keep me busy for the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
after that, when they go to college, it will be a little easier. It will be a load less. Then I will be able to proactively continue. So in answering your question, the next 5 years, I should be, finishing my master's degree, and then law school. That's really the dream, law
That's
school.
incredible. That's really incredible because, I mean, it's unfortunate that too many young girls like yourself who have children at the age of 17 never ever even get to finish college. I mean, from that point, they are just trapped. Whether they had dreams, whether they wanted to accomplish something, oftentimes society, there aren't programs, there's not a support system to help these women be able to succeed, because there's no reason, like, your life should not end because you got pregnant when you were 17. Your life should that should be just a part of that life, and then we provide the support system to enable you so that you can continue to be successful, right? Because ultimately your success is my success, is the
It's a
success of
community.
all the other women, right?
Absolutely.
Because
Yes.
we pull each other up, we help each other out. I'm really, really proud of you, Maria. I mean,
Thank you.
so few women of your age, who are as mature and as responsible. And I really do understand the cultural hold that your Ecuadorian culture has and had on you, because I come from the same culture, so I really do understand it. So let me ask you this last question. What advice would you give to a young 20-year-old woman who's on the cusp of trying to figure out what life has ahead?
The dream never dies. Even if it takes you one class per semester, one class per year, the dream never dies. Do not let your dreams die, because if we let our dreams die, then we die with our dreams. And this is something that I speak to my students. I have a lot of students that are just like me, I meet them in sixth grade. We talk about, we plan for college, we're ready. And senior year comes and it's Miss A, I can't do it anymore. And I'm like, why? We have everything planned. Miss
Mm-hmm.
A, need my baby. Okay, okay.
Right.
So I'm like, it's okay. And I always tell them my story. A lot of them don't know my story, but
Right.
when it comes to certain situations, I'm like, okay, so I was a mom too, but I'm here to help you out. So now I know that certain programs that do help with childcare, that do help financially, because it comes down to the money. It comes down to the money,
Absolutely.
and when you're
Hey,
a parent.
babies can't live on air.
Exactly. So, and then, yeah, and that's one of the biggest things when my students start dropping out of first and second year of college, because sometimes they want to continue, right? And then they stop going because they mess up a class and now financial aid doesn't cover it, and they don't have the money to, spend 3, 4, 5,000. Because if you got that money in our mentality, are you going to spend it in a class, or are you going to spend it with your son
Right.
or your child
Mm-hmm.
and the basic necessities?
Right. But I
So
think that's the thing. That's part of the reason I wanted to do this series, because of course we are going to be speaking to women of all ages, of all walks of life, and some of them will see themselves reflected in your story, right? And will be able to say, if she can do it, I can do it too.
yes, you can.
Right. And
Yes.
that's the key, right? Because that's the reason it's important for other women to talk about their stories. And I'm glad that you were honest about sharing that. Sometimes people are like, no, I don't want to talk about what happened when I was 17. But clearly that shaped and has defined the woman that you've become, right?
Yeah, and I think if I wasn't that parent, that that part of me that's responsible, that part of me that's mature, would have struggled in college.
Right.
Well, I
And
was
also
in
you're a
class.
different parent than your parents were to you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, back to if you are 18, 19, 20, and you feel that this is it, no, it's not. There is no race for success. Your success is at your own pace. You call the shots. You're able to call the shots. Don't ever take that power away from you. You have the power to make decisions. And even if you mess up today, guess what? Tomorrow is a better day. Tomorrow is a new day. You plan and you execute. That's really the part of it. There's no dream that's not accomplished without a plan. If you can dream it, start a plan for it, and just be very honest with yourself and hold yourself accountable. One of the things that I started doing with my friend, who also is in the similar path, we started having accountability meetings in our girl chats. So it's like, okay, we schedule the first or second day of the month and we just talk about things that we want to talk about, but taking our profession into a whole different level, because we do these goals and this goals assessments every 3-4 months, but we don't do that with ourselves. Do a goal assessment, write down, this is what I want to do this year and how am I going to do it. If it's lose 5 pounds, but you're eating Burger King every day, you're not going to lose those 5 pounds. So, right, and letting yourself know, like, okay, this is what and holding yourself accountable,
Right.
right? A lot of the times we want to say, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, but we're not making that move, that phone call. Listen, can I go and speak to you? Do you know of this? Ask questions. And sometimes people may shut the door on you because not everybody was kind to me. Some people said, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Maria. I can't help you. And it was okay. Then I went to other people that actually said, yes, I can help you.
Right.
And it was okay. Fine.
Well, and that's the thing. It's about persevering, right? So, and
Yes.
and, and you work through. And here's the part, right, that we don't always talk about, but we know it's true. That many of us have feelings of inadequacy, feelings of not
Oh,
being perfect, of not being, everything that the society tells us we have to be. We feel like we're failures. So, what I want women to hear is that we all experience it, and even though we feel that way, we have to push past it. We have to just keep going and get help, either whether it's professional help or friends who can help to keep you motivated so that you keep going, because life has its turns, and sometimes you have the most perfectly laid out plan and then something goes wrong.
exactly. And then you have to go back to the drawing board and plan again. And it's okay. It's okay to start over again. We figure that if we can't start over, then that's it. There's always a new opportunity for you to do things better, for you to do things differently. Don't take that for granted. Don't take that for granted.
Well, Maria, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you. Seriously. I think, I think that what you have brought is really beneficial to a lot of young women in particular.
And of course, I mean, please share my contact information. I'm literally open to have that conversation with anyone. And I'm always talking to girls because it's personal to me.
Right.
It's personal to me. Like, just like you said, their success is our success. They are the leaders of tomorrow. And it is our job, when we see a child in need, a teen in need, a conversation really does change. Or a young adult. If you see them that they are struggling, be kind, ask. Maybe you can't help them directly, but maybe you know someone that can. Or
Right.
maybe you know someone that knows someone that can.
Right.
Because human nature is to be kind.
We have to do our best.
Yes.